So Dennis, we've been speaking about international media in the United States. From an Irish perspective, what radio stations would you listen to in Ireland on a daily basis, or what newspapers would you buy yourself?
Well, I probably take news or media or music from different sources depending on what I want to, what kind of things I'm trying to get out of it. If you want to hear the best in contemporary music, rock music or indie music, you have to really listen to Phantom. With the exception of maybe if you want to listen to Paul McLuhan's show on Today FM, or perhaps one of Jenny Houston's shows on 2FM. But by and large, if they're the only places you really get cutting edge music that would then filter down into the mainstream radio in the next 6 months or a year. Like, for example, a great example would be the Strokes, and the Strokes have played for years on Phantom before. Now you turn on any of the mainstream radio stations, you might hear the Strokes. So it depends what you want to listen to. If you want to hear something you've never heard before, you'd probably be tuning into Phantom. If you want to hear something you're likely to like, you might tune into one way. So it depends what I'm in the mood.
And as regards newspapers, then, what do you generally consume in the Irish media?
Well, I think, going back to what I said beforehand, I think it's important, just because you might have a particular point of view, I think it's good to get the other point of views as well. So I might buy a lot of newspapers whose articles, or even the slant, or even the actual writer whose views I mightn't necessarily agree with, but it's good to listen to, and it's good to get an idea of what somebody who thinks different to you. So, I wouldn't necessarily be, buying the Daily Mail or the Irish Daily Mail, because I agree with everything that's said, but I think it's good to get, what they say is represents a larger proportion of what the population they're selling.
And when you were playing,
they have 150,000 readers, so it's good to find out what 150,000 people that might think different to me. So somebody like, I don't know, Mary Ellen Simon or Paul Drury or something, that's a different sort of slant on things that you're going to maybe pick up in the Irish Times. So it's good to get both sides, because if you, like anything, if you only read one side, you're not going to get the full picture.
And when you were playing rugby yourself, would you took cognizance of match reports, of player ratings, of all that whilst you were playing? Would it have affected your game? Do you block that sort of stuff out?
Well, I think every player, despite what I've met very few players who wouldn't read any newspaper coverage. You said, would it affect your play? I don't think it would affect any serious rugby players' play. What somebody in the media per se was going to say about them. You've always got to remember, I suppose, in those circumstances, that because of your proximity to the team, because of your knowledge you get from working in a team, and your intimate knowledge of the day-to-day tactics, skills, all this stuff, you're going to have more knowledge than the person who's writing about it. And that can, as long as that's in your head, you can take what's been written and then evaluate it.
But you would have, at the start of your career, when you made a breakthrough in the late 90s, you would have got some criticism for the defensive side of your game. You went away, you had a couple of serious injuries, you came back and recreated yourself and became a world-class player. And I'm just wondering, would have the criticism at that time, would it have weighed on your mind, or would you have just decided to do something to change yourself or to recreate yourself?
Not based on what I would have read, I would have done it based on my own performance and statistics and direction from coaches. That's really the only thing that particularly matters. It's not to say that what's out there doesn't affect you. I mean, it's a very public environment to work in as a professional sports person. It's critical, whether you agree with it or not. It is out there in the public domain, and therefore it is going to be a factor, and you're going to hear it back, or you're going to be influenced by it. I suppose as you get a bit more experience, you get to weigh up its importance. Is you can put it into a little compartment of how much you're going to pay attention to it, or heed to it, or how valuable it is. And as you get older, you realise that you take your information sources from hard statistics that you get from within your team, or from certain trusted sources, and very rarely would, if ever, would anything that would be said in the printed media or on the radio media be among those trusted sources.
So how does it work then I'm just intrigued from the media perspective in rugby, in that you can take somebody like Paul Scholes or like John Hayes, who can have a hugely decorated career, and we hardly know the sound of their voices. And then you get other people who we obviously see in the media all the time. Is it left to people, obviously outside of the captain, to take up what role they see fit as regards dealing with the media?
It's more and more controlled. Obviously, each team will have a communications kind of a person, and will farm out individual people for interviews. Rugby is slightly different to soccer, for example, when players rarely do, like you mentioned Paul Scholes, but actually if you think about it, there's no player that will, players do not do interviews in soccer. Like they just don't do them.
Yeah.
You know, they do the press conference and that's it. Unless they're promoting something, where they actually get drawn into writing a series of articles or sitting down for an interview. Rugby has always been slightly different to that. And then within the rugby, I suppose, team environment, that output is probably controlled as well. And you know, there's always things. The good thing about, I suppose, sitting in front of anyone who's asking you questions as a rugby player is that you're going to know more than they are, so you're going to be able to answer questions maybe a little bit, or you certainly give an answer that will suffice, that the questioner is going to be happy with the answer without necessarily giving away.
Same as in politics, when you know the strategy and they don't.
Yeah, and I suppose you know that's the value, I suppose, of an authentic communicator, really. You know, to be able to deliver something that is a acceptable answer without betraying I suppose the confidences of the team environment, and they have to come first and foremost. You know.
Okay, before we go, what interaction that you have on a daily basis with the media would you not be able to do without? What one thing would you not survive without?
I probably wouldn't be able to survive without the without a newspaper. Like I do, I'm saddened to see the demise of the newspaper worldwide, and how it's going to be taken over by online news. And online news is fantastic. You know, within it serves a fantastic function. But
that'd be quite a traditional view.
It is quite a traditional view, and you know, I don't know if it's ever going to survive. Like, you don't really know, but there is something. I like the ritual of it first and foremost. But I think there's, that there might be an opportunity, I suppose, for established news outlets to maybe capitalize on the authenticity of the news that you get in your hand, maybe over the stuff that you can get on the internet. It's different if a newspaper is producing a website as well, which is slightly different. But people do put a lot of faith, and I know I look at political news blogs and stuff, and they're interesting. But having experienced, maybe sometimes seen from a sporting point of view, the accuracy of some stuff that is written, even in the printed media or certainly online. And if you haven't been in a lucky position to know the 100% truth, then you start realizing that not everything you read, certainly online or can be guaranteed to be true, despite the best efforts and the conscious efforts of the person who's trying to write the story. They might be doing everything they can, but when I've already said that, I've given interviews where you don't give the whole truth. It's of no fault of the person who's reporting something that it mightn't be 100% accurate. So you've got to take that, I suppose, mindset into if you're reading about anything else online or elsewise. So I like the traditional media outlets. I like having a newspaper, and I'm interested to see if it's going to survive in its current form.
Thank you, Dennis.